What's up, everybody? Back here, Sun City Running, back with another episode. This week, I'm going to focus primarily on boy team rankings. It's going to be part one of my rankings. Part two will be next week, where I talk about some of the girls' team and what's going on with them, giving you some updates. And one of the reasons why I'm wanting to do this is the part of the season where we see a lot of teams take a lot of out of town travel, and so we're going to see a lot of great performances up and down across the board. And so it's a perfect time to give a little bit of that mid-season rankings and what we see in terms of shifts going around in the city of El Paso. And right away, one of the things that got me excited was last week we had Franklin going out and having some monster performances out at the Southlake 5K cross country invitational. And right off the back, the boys were led by Richard Mendoza, sophomore out of Franklin High School. Went out and busted out a 15:27. And I'll go through some of their times, and I'll go over why it's important that we're discussing these times. But again, this sophomore has shown a lot of potential. He's young. I know talking to their coach, he's one of the harder workers on the team, which is what we're seeing in terms of performances out of this young man. And across the board, we have Francisco Medina, who got a 15:30, Sebastian Mendez 15:33, Michael Villa 15:43, Jacob Martinez 15:57, and then Joaquin Muguero at 16. And what we're seeing out of this team are some huge chunks of time being blocked off, getting some PRs throughout the season this early on. And we'll go through some of their PRs. Richard Mendoza had about a 26-second PR. Francisco Medina had about a 26-second PR. Sebastian Mendez had about a 12-second PR. And what we're seeing, in terms of these PRs is huge. You talk about these boys that have been running in El Paso at a little bit elevation, and you go down to, closer to sea level, you're going to see these huge times being chucked off. And what's important about this is that it gives us a little bit more of an accurate depiction of what this team is capable of in terms of their overall scope of Texas. And what was even more impressive was that they got third overall at this invitational behind Bridgeland and Southlake. And you can't help but not deny that this team, they have some potential in the state of Texas overall. Now, if you look at the CCCAT rankings from a few weeks ago, you won't see them in the top 10, but I think that is going to change within the coming weeks, and we'll get a little bit more into that later. But what was impressive about this team was they went out there, they knew that they were going to have some stiff competition, and they went out there and they performed. And in a grand scale like that, when you're racing some of these top teams, which are, in my opinion, the upper echelon in terms of cross country for the state of Texas, you are going to have to take those things into account. So I think that's really, really going to come into play down the road as we get to the end game of the season. And not only that, but that brought their 1 to 5 split down to 30 seconds, which is incredibly impressive, knowing that there's a lot of seniors on this team. So I think that is going to play to their advantage in terms of experience, in terms of running. And not only that, but they brought their team average split down to a 15:38, which puts them, in my opinion, top 10 in the state of Texas. And again, we'll get more into that later. For the other boys' side, we didn't really see Eastwood run some of their top guys this past weekend, but we are going to see some of their better runners again back out at the Cathedral and Loretto Invitational at Veterans Park this coming weekend. So it's going to be exciting to see, kind of getting to see them back in action. I know they are having a little bit of a downtrend, more than likely, knowing that in 2 weeks they're going to be racing out at in Arizona at the Twilight Invitational, Desert Twilight Invitational. So we got to keep an eye on that. But shifting forward, looking at the Coronado boys, they just did take first place at the Sled Invitational. We're still waiting on results. We'll probably get those in like 3 weeks. Can't say a little bit any more than that, but these boys are on my radar in terms of what we've been seeing in the past. We have that team led by Humberto Serna, who, you guys have heard me talk high on this boy, this young man, multiple times. He's got talent. He's not afraid to work, and he's not afraid to get after it in a meet too, in these big time meets. But we didn't see a whole lot of different shifts in this team, but I still have them sitting at third overall for El Paso in terms of my rankings. But that could very much change. We had the Pebble Hills boys who went to go run in Alamosa, Colorado, and where their finished overall might not be where they might have wanted to be. I thought it was impressive because it was 7th overall, and they are led by junior Eric Gutierrez, who ran a 16:13, 6.65. Their 1 through 5 split I thought was pretty well done at a 118, 17:06 average, which is slower than what we're used to seeing out of this team. But it's important to note that the elevation here in El Paso is around 3,700, and in Alamosa you're looking at an elevation of 7,500. That's an incredibly big jump, which makes sense for what you would expect out of a team to go up in elevation and run on very short notice. Not only that, you take into account the travel, which to me makes this performance impressive in terms of 6A boys here in El Paso and overall as well. And I think what we have to look out for is that these type of meets that these teams go out and challenge themselves in are going to pay dividends down, when we start getting to a district where right now the third place, in my opinion, is also open, for any teams taking for the Varsity Boys. And I think when you go out there and you challenge yourself against some of these better teams in the country, that is going to play to your advantage. And I think that's why we can really see Pebble Hill sneak in there and take that third spot from Coronado. I did get to talk to their coach a couple of weeks ago, and he said that what's different about this program this year as opposed to last year is they're just more dialed in. He said there was less nonsense and more focus. He said that the typical distractions that they would have, whether it would be school or real life, they're gone. It's allowed his team to be more relaxed, run with less pressure, and I think these are things that we have to consider going into district, and it's worth noting midway through our season. And so I really think Pebble Hills boys have a shot to really bump Coronado out of that third place spot. But we still got a lot of season to go, and it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. As far as overall scope for the state of Texas and how it correlates to El Paso and how El Paso can fit into that rankings. Again, these are just my personal rankings on what I see, what I know about the programs here in El Paso, and how I feel that they're going to progress and mesh into these other programs across the state. I would rank right now Bridgeland, which is led by Griffin Sack. Incredible young runner or experienced runner, busted out of 14:40, out in Southlake, and helped lead his team to a first place finish, right in front of Southlake. And right now, I would currently rank them above Southlake just because Southlake, I know some of their top boys haven't raced, and so as soon as those guys get out in there into action, I think that's really easily slides Southlake into first place. And I think what's more surprising is I personally would put Eastwood there at third place overall for the state of Texas. And one of the reasons being is right now they're ranked number 1 in Texas overall. And I think that's important to note from a small scale. But when you take into account the turnover that this team typically has, you have to take that into account as well. We're looking at a team that hasn't really gone out of town yet. And we'll see a good glimpse of what the potential for this team is in the state of Texas when they go out and run at lower elevation in Arizona at the Desert Twilight Invitational. So that's really going to give us a good indication of where I feel like we can see their average chunk down even more. And you compare that to what we're seeing in the changes from Franklin High School, and you take into account of lower elevation, you can really see that those time differences do matter. And I definitely think that you can't ignore Franklin now. I think they sneak right in between Bentonville and the Woodlands. While the Woodlands has a incredibly first sub 15 5K right now, Franklin has 4 boys currently in front of their number 2 guy. And that doesn't mean that I'm not counting out Woodlands. They have an incredibly good and the winningest program in the state of Texas. So you can't ignore their experience as well. And I think that's probably what would give the Woodlands the edge over a school like Franklin, as where they are currently racing the best in the state on a consistent week-by-week basis. And so if I had to say, it could be a little bit of a toss-up, but I think it's fair to put Franklin somewhere around the 6-7 spot in the state of Texas. And then the rest is a toss-up between Waxahachie, Grapevine, and Jesuit. And that makes things interesting. We still got a whole lot of season left, a lot to see out of some of these schools. Not just talking about El Paso in general, but, the grand scope of Texas. So, again, don't forget, this is just a part 1 of my ranking series on this weekly episodic thing that I've been going for El Paso. And be on the lookout for next week, when I'm going to be talking more specifically just about the girls' side, like I did today about rankings, and where I feel like some of these schools can get shaken up. Maybe some schools can sneak into that 3rd spot, 4th spot, and really make a push to qualify to regionals coming out of El Paso. And it's exciting. Things are getting to really pick up now, as we're going to see a lot of these schools shift into their speed phase out of the programs, and go out of town and really get that big competition experience. So keep an eye out. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you feel like I missed something, or maybe I got something wrong in your opinion, leave your opinion down below. I would love to have a discussion about it. And don't forget to hit that subscribe. So we'll see you guys next week, and I look forward to it.